Okay, so we are live now. So, thank you for joining us for our first broadcast of the Healing Place. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. Because this is a place where. Thank you for joining us for our first broadcast of the Healing Place. I'm excited. I'm excited. We have some feedback from our. I'm excited. I'm excited. We have some feedback from our. We are coming right back. Give me a minute. Okay. Here we are. Sorry. We had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry. We had feedback. But I'm excited about tonight's broadcast. I am excited about our guest on tonight. Again, this is the Healing Place. This is a place where we can come and we can be transparent, where we will discover truth, where we will discover how those who have been hurt have journeyed to their way to healing. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about my friend being here, Mary. Thank you for being here and joining us on tonight. When I first met you, we met on WordPress.
That's right.
Fellow bloggers. And so it was an instant connection. And we've done some, I want to say we've done some work together, maybe with my magazine, I think it was.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So I love your story, even though it started off tragic, but I mean, it's beautiful to me. Your story is so, so beautiful, the way that God had his hand in it. And so I'm going to digress, and I'm going to give the stage to you for you to tell our audience about your story. And I will interject whenever the Holy Spirit leads me to. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you the floor.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me to be here. I met my husband, Steve, when we were in high school. I was in the 9th grade. He was in the 11th grade. And we were high school sweethearts, dated all through high school, mostly through college, broke up for a little while, got back together, grew up in Michigan, moved to Georgia, got married, waited to have kids. Had our son, had our daughter. He got a job as a firefighter. I went to graduate school, had finally gotten a job as a school counselor. For all purposes, living the dream. I was happy, had a son, a daughter, a husband that I adored. And we had gone to Disney World and had no diaper bag, 2 potty trained kids. And I said, honey, let's have another baby. And he said, why do you want to have another baby? We have a boy and a girl, and we just went to Disney with no diaper bag. And I said, please, just one more. Well, I was 33 and he was about to be 35. And so he said, well, what the hell? Okay. So I got pregnant really fast, faster than I did with the others. And I was surprised. Surprisingly, I got pregnant that fast. And then in September, he turned 35. And in October, he died in a motorcycle accident. And I remember being very confused about why I was pregnant. Why did God allow me to get pregnant?
Confused.
Why did I had 2 kids. I had a 6-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, and here now I'm pregnant with this baby, and I was 10 weeks. Do you hear that feedback coming?
Okay. It is. I'm trying to stop it. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So I wasn't quite sure yet, where God was leading me at all, but here I was pregnant. And the thing about the motorcycle was in June of that year, we had celebrated our 10th anniversary, our 10th wedding anniversary. We had been together 19 years. And he had always wanted a motorcycle. So for our anniversary, I surprised him with that motorcycle.
Yeah.
So that was a gift for me. It was a surprise. My friend helped me surprise him. So that was in June. Well, in October, he was in a motorcycle accident. And The morning that he died, I found out about the accident because I was driving to work and a friend of mine had left me a message on my phone. And she said, hey, there's an accident, on this road. You might want to go a different way to work because there's a lot of traffic. And by the way, there's a motorcycle involved. So just make sure you know where Steve is. It was like a secondhand thought for her to say that. So I thought, well, that is kind of weird because Steve rode his motorcycle today. So I called the fire station. He should have been at work by then. And he didn't answer his phone, which was not unusual because once he got to work, it wasn't like this was in 2004. So phones were not what they are now.
Yes.
You got them and you put them away and that was it. You didn't look at
Yeah.
it again.
The days of old. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he would have put it in his locker and gone about his day. So I didn't think much about him not answering my call. So I called the station itself. And I was assuming that he was at work. And they said, he's not here yet. Well, that's when I got a clue that something wasn't right because he left hours ago, and so I told them, I said, my friend said that there was an accident and he should be at work. So they said, well, why don't you call 911 and just see what, if you can get some information and we'll see what we can do here. And I said, okay. So I hang up and I call 911 and I give them their name. They're like, no, we don't have any record of, Steve in this accident. And I said, oh, okay. Well, during this whole time, the chief at my husband's fire department was getting notified that he in fact was in an accident. It was in a different location. So the 911 where I was calling didn't have him on record because it was his accident was actually somewhere else. So I get a call and they say, can someone drive you? And so at this point, I'm getting very confused because I'm driving to work. And I'm like, what do you mean, can someone drive me? I'm in the car. Well, he's on his way to the hospital. And I said, oh, well, I'll just meet you there. And in the meantime, I leave him a voicemail. Hey, babe, I'm on my way to the hospital. Don't worry. I know where you're at because I'm thinking he's worried about me, not thinking that anything fatal or. Yeah. So I get there and the fire trucks are all lined up. And it was very odd because this hospital was in one county and my husband worked 2 counties over. And the fire trucks were from his department. So they were not like Cobb County, they were DeKalb County, they were all lined up. And so everything was very surreal. And they wouldn't let me see him. And they kept telling me he's in a CAT scan. And so nobody would tell me. And I was calling my friends and I kept saying, something's not right. Like nobody's telling me anything. And so he had passed away by the time I, learned anything. I saw the doctors coming down the hall towards me. And one of my friends was saying, I'm sure he's fine. And I just remember yelling at her. You don't see the way they're looking at me. It's the way they're looking at me. Something isn't right the way they're looking at me, because everybody had that look. And nobody wanted to tell me how seriously he was injured is what it was. Everybody knew how seriously he was injured, but nobody would tell me. So he had passed away. So here I am. I was 10 weeks pregnant, 6-year-old, 3-year-old. No family here except for a cousin. I live in Georgia. All of our family was in Michigan. So it was a very lonely time. I didn't know any young widows. I was 33. To me, widow meant old grandma.
Right.
There wasn't the internet. I mean, it wasn't like now where you could go to Facebook and find companionship with others. I mean, you didn't have it. So I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But one thing that I did do was I just kept going to church.
Yeah.
because I felt like when I was in church, I knew where he was. And it was the only time that I felt like I knew where he was. And
Mm-hmm.
all the rest of the time, I just kept thinking, where is he and when's he going to come home?
Right.
And so our baby was born, and a healthy baby boy. And a couple of years later, I remarried because I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. And it didn't take me very long to realize that was a mistake.
Yeah.
um, and got divorced right away. My kids were no worse for the wear. They were like, "Whoo, we're done with that," like they were happy. And I was more concerned about how it was going to affect them, but
Mhm.
they were fine. And the longer that I've been on this journey, the more I've realized that a lot of widowed women almost or do remarry the wrong person
Mhm.
first.
Well, can we talk about that? What do you think
Mhm.
what is it that drives them to do that?
Um, it's a couple of things. First of all, the loneliness is so incredibly hard. It's a physical loneliness, it's an emotional loneliness. I think too, for me, I just felt like I would never love someone the way that I loved him. So
Mhm.
I thought this is as healed as I'm ever going to be, you know?
Mhm.
So this is as good as it's ever going to be.
Mhm.
Um, and so for me, it was good enough.
Okay.
Just good enough.
Mhm.
I also felt like I was a better mom when I was married, and I was fighting God's plan for my life. You know,
Yes. Yes.
I wasn't understanding that I can fight it and fight it and fight it, but he still has a plan for my life.
Yes. And I'm glad you said that because I spoke with a lady who had lost her husband, and she ended up marrying the wrong guy. And her story was that it was a friend, and he was just there the whole time. And I guess
Mhm.
something about he had his eyes on her the whole time they were married. And so anyway, they ended up marrying, and she felt like she couldn't be good to her children being single. And
Mhm.
I'm like, Lord, but the Lord, he says that when father and mother leaves us, or the Bible says forsake us, but when they're not there, he's there. When
Mhm.
we're alone, he's our husband. So yeah, I think.
Well, the Lord, He met all of my needs.
Hmm.
Died. Um, I had people bringing food, and I mean, I had like my grass was cut, and there were firefighters who showed up that I didn't even know that said, "Hey, I heard you need new tires on your van," and I had tires on my van, and I mean, it was the Lord met all of our needs, and
Hmm.
so for me not to trust that He would do that anyway was just because I was so broken. Um,
Hmm.
and losing Steve, it broke me. I was broken.
Hmm.
And, at that point, I was 33 and I had been with him for 19 years. So that was more than half of my life.
Hmm.
I didn't know life without him.
Right.
So, got divorced, married and divorced 2.5 years. So that was like, whoo, we're done.
Yeah.
And it was amicable, and you know, still run into him occasionally, and the kids are fine, so that was good. And it was shortly thereafter that I met online the man that I am married to now. And one thing that I have told my kids, because I know it to be true now, the longer that you are with someone that isn't right for you,
Mhm.
the longer you're prolonging from meeting the person that the Lord really has already picked out for you.
Yes. Yes.
And the difference between the two relationships for me was that when I started dating my current husband, there was no hurry or rush or anything for us to do anything besides just date each other.
Mhm.
I just wanted to be a mom,
Mhm.
and he was good at that. And so I just got to focus on my kids and enjoy them and be their mom and do all of that. And so for 5 years, we saw each other on the weekends,
Hmm.
because during the week I was a mom and I was a band mom and I was a soccer mom and I was a gymnastics mom. And I learned that God intended that to happen.
Hmm.
And he also took care of me in such a way that I was financially secure enough that I could work part-time and do that. And I
Hmm.
know that not every widowed woman is blessed that way, but
Right.
Steve also took care of us that way.
Hmm.
So I met my current husband and we met online on match.com. I'm like, we should be on a commercial, honey.
Yes. Yes.
But it really was the hand of God because our kids went to the same schools because his ex-wife and I worked in the district that his ex-wife lived in. So there was a lot of things that happened naturally. We didn't have to force any blending. We didn't have to. Our kids are very close in age. They all liked each other. They all got along. There wasn't. It was just easy. It was very easy. He had a very busy job, so during the week he was busy. I was busy. Everything was easy. Um, and then once we decided to blend our families, it actually was after the kids started bugging us. When are y'all going to buy a house? I mean, really? When we finally did, we had trouble adjusting, not the kids. In fact, my daughter at the time said to me, "Are you guys going to break up?" And I said, "No, why?" And she said, "You've been fighting a lot." And I said, "Well, I've lived on my own for a long time and been in charge of our family, and he's been in charge of his family and been on his own. So we're having some adjustment issues here." The
Uh-huh.
kids all did great because we had 5 kids with us at the time when we blended our family,
Hmm.
and 4 were teenagers. Um, so we did that, and then my daughter and son sat him down and asked him to adopt them.
Wow, really?
Yes, and they said, "You're our dad, and we want you. We want to have your name."
How did
And
it
so
make you feel?
well, we had talked about it beforehand, and so I knew, and they had asked me, and I was really happy for them. My oldest had decided not to do that because he was already older than 18,
Hmm.
and moved out of the house, and so, but they were so considerate. They asked all their stepbrothers and sisters and my other son. So they made sure it was good with everyone,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and everybody was good. So at that time, they were still calling my husband by his name. And so his only response was, well, you'll have to call me dad. And so that was cool. So we went through the whole adoption process, and my daughter moved her previous last name to her middle name, so she has both her dad's names. And then my youngest son, his middle name is Steve, and so he has both his dad's names as well.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Hmm. So
Well, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's really, really beautiful. Because it's almost, I don't want to say rare, but I've heard stories of couples when it came time to blend their families.
hmm
Some of the difficulties that they experienced during that.
and
So
I
that's
think I think it's because we waited so long. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, it was over 5 years before we ever blended.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, I mean, the kids at that point, I mean, like, they spent time together by themselves, like, even without us. So,
Mhm.
we had at one point, we had 3 together in the same high school, and so I think at that point, they've been together for so long.
Yeah, and it did, and like you said, by being in the same high school,
Mhm.
it just made it really easier.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I wanted us to go back, if you don't mind. If it's too much, just let me know. I wanted us to go back because I'm not sure if you know that I used to work as a chaplain in the hospital, and so I worked many cases, and I learned firsthand how close firemen are. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. is a whole, it's a family.
It is a family.
Um, yes, and I've work in those cases. It just gave me a new sense of what family is, because it's not always, your blood relations, but it's those that stand by you. And
Yeah.
so at that moment when you came to the hospital and you saw um, the trucks lined up,
Hmm.
did you have any, did you have something gnawing at you that said this might not be too good?
No, because I knew the guys were there because they loved him. I
Hmm.
mean, and something had happened. Um, I It was all very surreal. At that time, I had a minivan that had a built-in car seat, and I had my 3-year-old with me. And so I called my school where I worked, and I said, I was the school counselor at a high school, and I called my coworker and I said, I need you to come get Caitlin and take
Hmm.
her to preschool. I mean, at this point, I'm still not even. I'm just thinking Steve's hurt. People are in motorcycle accidents all the time, and they recover. And I said, but you have to get a car seat because I don't have a car seat to give you.
Hmm.
And, now it sounds so crazy, but um, so she's like, okay, well, so the firefighters were holding Caitlin. And so, no, I wasn't even thinking about that because we were all so very close. We
Hmm.
were all friends. And like you said, we're family.
Hmm.
Well, what didn't occur to me at that time was that there were people from my church that were showing up,
Mm.
and people from my work and firefighters. And like all of a sudden, all these people are coming.
Mhm.
And that's when I started saying to my friend, people are looking at me really funny. And there's all these people that are here. And I finally stopped a nurse in the hall and I said, is somebody going to update me on my husband? Because at this point, I mean, nobody had talked to me yet. And
Mhm.
she said, I know he still has a heartbeat. And that's the first thing anyone said to me. And I said, and that's when I called his parents.
Yeah.
And they were in Michigan. I had not called anyone yet. And I
Mhm.
called them and I said, I don't know what's happened, but it's really bad and you need to come here.
Yeah.
And that's all, that's all I knew. I just said, I don't know, but you need to come here.
Mhm.
And then by the time I had been told that he died, I called my friend and she said, but I have the car seat. I mean, it was just this whole like, what do you mean he died? I have the car seat. I'm on my way,
Mhm.
because it was so surreal.
Yeah.
And then after the day, I found out that like one of my church friends that she had called the hospital and said, I know you can't give me information, but I'm wondering if I should come. And they had said, yes, you need to come. So that's how they were getting the information.
Mhm. Mhm.
They wouldn't give out information, but they said, yes, she's going to need your support. So that's
Okay.
how people were finding out to come.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
all I knew is I was looking up and all these people were here.
Yeah, yeah. And that's amazing too, because again, I've worked many cases and I've not seen that ever happen. And so I've seen it where there's little support,
Yeah.
or the wife has called. She's been the one to make the calls, but yeah, that I mean, for you to have been in a state where you didn't have that much family, but you still had that support. And it's almost as though God said, I'm going to arrange this so she can still have this cushion around her, you know?
I mean, when I look back, God's hand was so. Steve and I were, prior to the year before he died, we were married Catholic because he grew up Catholic.
Hmm.
But we were the go to church on Easter and Christmas
Right.
church going people
Hmm.
because neither one of us felt connected to the Catholic Church. And
Hmm.
so, about a year before he died, we started going to church because we had Cameron and Caitlin, and we felt the pull to find a church and feel connected because we wanted our children to have faith.
Hmm.
And we found this really small Lutheran church that we really felt connected to.
Hmm.
And we started going there. Steve died in October. The previous November, I was baptized, and so were the kids.
Wow.
In February, we made our wills. I mean, the Lord set us up for this.
Yeah.
And when I tell you we were involved in church, Steve was studying the Bible for the first time in his life, because Catholics, they don't really study the Bible.
Oh, I
You
know. I know.
they don't do like Bible studies, and he was going to Bible study. We were volunteering to clean the church. We were like in church, and we were involved in church. We had made our will. So even when he died, all of our documents were all together because we had just made our will. And when we made our will, we got life insurance, and the Lord had set us up. And I had a church family, which
Yeah.
really, if it had happened 1 year previous, I would not have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I felt God all around me.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, God is just so good like that. It's like we cannot beat the love that he has for us, even though we can be in a crisis and we don't understand. But he's so right there. And it's like I've already went before you and prepared the way.
Yes. And then when I was at the hospital and I wanted to see him, when he died, and they were worried, we need to clean him up and this, and I, because I immediately went into denial. You have the wrong person. We're not, because where they were telling me his accident was, I was very confused. That isn't his normal route to go to work. And so I kept saying, like, you have the wrong person, because that's not even the way he goes to work,
Right.
So I said, I need to see him. I don't believe you. Well, we need to clean him up. I don't want you to clean him up because I don't believe you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my pastor went in with me,
Okay.
will you go with me and pray with me? And so the support that I had, I would not have had previously.
Wow.
And so then it was a different, I had always had faith. I became saved and became a Christian in elementary school. But I wouldn't have had the support of a church family in quite the same way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and my
And
pastor.
that's very important.
Yes.
That is very, very important.
Mhm.
Because it's nothing worse than, going through a tragic situation and having to go alone by yourself, get through it by yourself without the support, even though sometimes, I know there's a array of emotions that can happen. And at times you might say, I don't want to be bothered, but the fact that people are still keep walking in and letting you know I'm here. Whenever you're ready, I'm here.
Well, and our faith, and all the time, growing, like, we don't, I kept the kids, we went to Lutheran church for a long time. And as the years have gone by and we've changed and we've grown, we are now at a more contemporary church, and the kids and I have gone different places. My daughter decided to get baptized again when she was in middle school, and I didn't know what she wrote, because they had to write, and her middle school pastor was going to baptize her, and so as he's reading it, I'm standing there, and of course, I cried my face off because she wrote, my dad died when I was little, and my mom took us to church, and that's how we got through it. And so she's talking about how, and our faith just grew and grew, and that's how we got through losing my dad. And I don't know where I'd be. And so I'm just like crying my face off, because it was at that moment I realized that I didn't raise these kids alone.
No.
I didn't. He was with me.
Yes.
He was,
Yes.
and but I felt alone a lot of times.
And I think that's the thing, especially as when you're a single parent, and it feels like, I know I've had feelings of nobody understands. It's like, you looking on you see me on the outside, but you don't understand how it feels.
Mhm.
when I go to sleep at night, when I put the kids down at night, you don't understand how lonely it gets because, of course, God made us for relationships. And
Mhm.
so when we are used, especially after 19 years, I'm used to this relationship.
Mhm.
And it's hard to adjust because this has been my routine. This has
Mhm.
been my normal. And now this is not, you know.
And what's so unique about losing a spouse? And I spend time with new widows, and that's something that I do regularly. Is that when you lose a spouse, you lose the ability to see your future because
Mhm,
you plan.
mhm.
Well, someday when we retire, we're going to do this.
Right.
When our kids are grown, we're going to do this, or this
Hmm.
is what we're going to do next year. Or I mean, like right now, I already have a condo booked for April for spring break.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
like these are things you do with a spouse, right? So
Hmm.
when you lose that person, your
Hmm.
ability to see the future disappears because
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all those plans have changed,
Hmm.
and it shakes the very foundation, and it is a very different kind of loss. And I had someone compare it to a divorce to me, and I said it's not the same, because I didn't choose this.
Hmm.
This isn't something that I chose. I went to sleep and I woke up and he was gone. This isn't the same. And I've been through both. I got divorced and I've been widowed, and it's not the same. You know.
No, I've heard women who say that, your spouse is somebody that you never expect to not be with.
Mhm.
You don't think about losing them. You don't think about not being with them. Um, I've had a older lady tell me, I actually would think about losing my children. She said, but I never thought I would lose my husband.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's something to when she was talking to me and I thought, I was like, well, she said it's almost like a ripping away. She said, because you truly become one. She said, if you do it the right way, you become one.
Mhm.
She said, so when her husband passed away, that it felt like a part of her soul had been ripped
Mhm.
away from her. And it
Mhm.
was a part of her that she said she had lost part of her identity because
Mhm.
they were wrapped up into
Yeah.
one another. And so she said it took her some time, and I don't know if you experienced it, but she said it took her some time to get back to know who she was without him, because she
Mhm.
said she didn't know.
Yeah. And like I'm a completely different person. Like there have been times where, and I may have blogged about it. I'm not sure, where I've thought, would he even recognize me? Like I wonder if my job would even be the same,
Mhm.
because my job has taken a different turn,
Yeah.
and um, because we are different,
Mhm.
and when I used to meet with Modern Widows Club, we would talk about, like, what are some things that you've had to do since he's been gone that have made you more independent, or that you didn't do before, or because you become a new person, because
Yeah.
that loss is so great, you know that
Mhm.
and so when I look at, we downsized our house, and I came across some old videotapes from
Uh-huh.
when the kids were little, and I was watching some, and it looks like a whole nother person
Oh, wow.
when I look at myself, and it's like the before and the after,
Mhm.
because I was so, I, I don't know if innocent is the right word, but so just in my bliss, and had no idea that
Mhm.
he was going to be gone,
Yeah.
so it's like the before and the after. And
Mhm.
my husband, now, the other day we were talking about marriage, and he said he feels like it's like, you're two sides of the same coin.
That's good.
He said, because you become that, like, that much, it's like two
Mm.
sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And because I said something to him about marriage, and he said he never felt like that in his first marriage, and he said that now he does, and he gets it. He said, now I get it, He said, because it feels like me and you are two sides of the same coin. He said, and I can't imagine ever like rolling over and you not being there. Yeah. And so I thought that's a good way to describe that.
It is. That's real good. That's real good. So I want us to talk about your career change, because I think I remember when you started going into your counseling, because I think we kind of started at the same time, and of course, we know what happened to mine. But tell us how you changed careers. How did that come about?
Well, well, you know, when Steve was here, I went to grad school and became a school counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing school counseling and plodding along, and then Steve passed away, and I decided to work part-time, and the school district I worked in had part-time school counselors, which was awesome. So that's what I was doing. And I've always had a passion for suicide prevention. And so in my district, they had a prevention intervention department, and they had a grant for a suicide prevention program. And they called me up and they were like, we need a coordinator for this program, and we really think you'd be great. So I started doing that and school counseling together. And then it eventually just leaned over to where I was only doing prevention, you know, and I ended up doing that for about 10 years. And then the school district that I live in contacted me about 4 years ago and said, we want you to come over here and do prevention intervention and start all these programs that you've done over in the other district. So, and I had been doing part-time seeing clients as a therapist and then working in the schools part-time. But when I started here doing it full-time, I just, you know, it's too much. So now I do prevention full-time instead of part-time and part-time therapy. But I use my counseling a lot because I work with the school counselors and that sort of thing. But I still have such a passion for kids and suicide prevention and, you know, all of that.
Yeah, yeah, but that's good. If you had to leave those that are listening, those that are struggling with trying to heal from the loss of a spouse, what would you tell them? What can you tell them some of the things that help you to heal and to really open up their heart again to love? Because I know that I've heard some women say that, you know, I would never, I feel like I could never do it again. I feel like I would be betraying my spouse if I went and married again.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is really just one day at a time, you know, and that sounds so corny, except for when you're in the midst of it, you know, because it really is a one day at a time, you know. It's like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It's been 17 years for me. It was 17 years last week. And even after 17 years, there are some days where the grief just still hits me, you know, where I just really, you know, I look at my kids and I think, wow, you know, does he see them? You know, I really hope that he sees them. So give yourself grace, you know, be okay with that that's going to happen. As far as opening yourself up to love, I think it's more about opening yourself up to being happy, you know, and it being okay. I once told someone that I believe Steve's in heaven. And so he is in the most glorious, most wonderful place that I can't wait to be. So whatever I do with my life here makes no difference to him there. So if I am miserable or if I am happy, it makes no difference to him. He's waiting for me, but he is not grieving for me because he's in heaven. And there is no grief in heaven.
Right.
So he is waiting for me, but me being miserable down here does nothing for Steve. So I can honor him by living a happy life, by being a great mom, by loving again, by
Mhm.
showing, by giving back to God the gift that he gave me, which is my life.
Mhm.
Because I rode that motorcycle with Steve plenty of times. And if it was my time to go, we would have been on that bike together.
Mhm.
And so that's how I think about it. You know, if it was, if it was your time too, then the Lord would have taken you too. And it's
Mhm.
not. And so our life is our gift back to God and
Mhm.
what we do with it. And our spouse is not hurting for us. And my son, at 6 years old, one time came in. I was in my room, and he had heard me crying, and he came in and he held my hand and he said, "Mommy, Daddy will be just fine without you."
Really?
He did, and I remember thinking, "But I'm not okay without Daddy." But in his infinite wisdom, at 6 years old, he was telling me,
Mm.
"Daddy's fine, Mom. Why are
Mhm.
you crying? Daddy's fine."
Yeah. That's amazing because I know that it had to be God put that in his spirit for him to come and tell you.
He did, and I just, because I just was like, "But I'm the one that's not okay." But
Mhm.
really, that's what grief is. It's us. It's us wanting them here, but
Mhm.
they're in heaven, you
Mhm.
know. And in the
Mhm.
blink of an eye, we will be there too.
Yes, and you know, I was talking to someone who had lost someone, and we were talking, and I said, you know, I said honestly, I said if we could pour back the thin layer between here and the spirit realm, and I said you could see your loved one. I said I promise you, they would tell you they don't want to come back. It's so
Mm-mm.
much better there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they would tell you to live your life so that one day you can come and see them.
That's
You
right.
know, and so it would, like you said, be better to honor them by the way you choose to live your life.
And my daughter, one time someone said to her, "Well, gosh, what's it been like to only grow up with them, to have have only a mom?" And she looked at her, she said, I don't know, like that's all I've ever known. Our kids are resilient. I know so many widowed women worry, are my kids going to be okay? They are. They're resilient. Do what you need to do. My son, my 6 year old, he had the hardest time. He spent many years in counseling. Um, he was on anxiety medication and ADHD medication. And boy, that kid gave me a run for my money, and he was a difficult child to raise, but he is a thriving, healthy adult that's doing good things now. But you know what? Kids are resilient and they're going to be okay. And any widow with kids, that's something I really, want them to know, is that kids are very resilient, and
Mhm.
if you're okay, your kids will be okay. But they
Yeah.
really do look to you,
Mhm.
you
I
know.
think that's good. I'm glad you brought that up about your son because sometimes we can go through things and we can blame ourselves and say that may perhaps if I did something better or if I wasn't so sad or this is my fault. Um,
Mhm.
the reason my child is doing or is going through this phase. But even though it's raining now, there is sunshine that will come if you just stick with it,
Mhm.
and know that, like, God is still here. I understand why, but we're going to get through this together.
Well, and sometimes you need mental health help.
Hmm.
I mean, I have been in and out of counseling, in 17 years. I've taken antidepressants, when I've needed them. I mean, sometimes you need more, and that is totally okay.
Yes.
Sometimes you need more, and it's okay.
Mhm.
And, I believe the Lord gives us what we need, and
Yes.
that sometimes
Yes.
that might be that antidepressant that you need,
Yeah.
because I'll tell you, my son was a very difficult child to raise. And when I was by myself and I had three of them and he was acting out, and, it was hard, and
Hmm.
I needed to get support for myself. And
Hmm.
so, being a good mom means taking care of you too. And
Hmm.
that's important because when we're grieving, we have to take care of us too.
Hmm. That's really good because self-care means a lot. And a lot of times they put so much, people have so much negative or the stigmatism that goes behind seeking counseling, mental health counseling, and having to
Yeah.
take a pill in order to feel better. Um, and I think me, myself, as a pastor, I oftentimes would tell a member, you need to go and seek help,
Hmm.
and right now
Yeah.
I believe you need to get some medicine
Hmm.
because praying and reading the word is not going to do it for you. You got
That's,
something going on chemically
that's
that you
right.
need to go get some help for. And it's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Especially when you've been through something traumatic,
absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. And that's when you lose a spouse too, that's a trauma to your body. And it
Yes, it
takes
is.
a long time. It's like when you lose a child, whenever you have a loss like that, it takes a long time for your body to recover from that trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay if we need help for that. And our children may need help with that. And they may need counseling. And the thing with children's grief is theirs comes and goes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll be fine for 6 months and then cry or angry, or, I mean, they could be fine for 3 years and then all of a sudden have an outburst. Their grief comes and goes so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Connor, my baby, he, I knew at some point he would realize that his dad died before he was born.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about 9 years old, and we were at the cemetery. And he looked at the stone and he said, "That's my name there." Because he saw Stephen and that, his middle name. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, 2004. He said, "Is that when he died?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I was born in 2005." And I said, "Yeah." Like he was putting it all together. And I knew it would happen.
Mm-hmm.
He was 9. And he said, "He died before I was born." And I said, "Yes." And I was like waiting because I thought, this is it. And he just let out this wail and he just cried and cried and cried. And he said, "It's not fair, Mommy, that I never got to meet him." And I just held him and held him and held him. And I thought, he gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Because all these years, he would say things like, "Well, where's my picture with Daddy? Where's my picture?" Like he didn't get it. And,
Mm-hmm.
we would say, "Well, honey, you weren't born yet. But eventually he got it. And then he was fine after that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kids' grief.
Yeah.
It comes and it goes and it comes and it
Mm-hmm.
goes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is good. That is good.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for joining us. I do. Like I said, I think your story is so beautiful. Even though it started off tragic, but it's just blossomed into this just beautiful story for other widows to be able to come to and get support. And I put on the comments, if you guys want to go and follow her on Widow Plus 3. Her stories are amazing. It's like when you get the pen in your hand and you begin to write, you're writing a story for you to be able to visibly see what's going on. And so, guys, please go follow her. Widowplus3.com. Again, you will love it. Again, I thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing this.
Oh,
This
you're
means
welcome.
so much.
Waited. And I hope that you guys all have a great evening. And
You too, you too. And we hopefully we'll talk soon. Love you.
yeah, love you too.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Again, guys, thank you for joining us. Please don't forget to share, comment, let us know how you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you know of someone that has recently lost a spouse, please share this broadcast with them. And please don't forget to go to widowplus3.com and find Mary, her blog, and how she blogs about her journey and her experiences, because your emotions are real. How you feel is a real thing. But remember that you can get through it. You're not the only one who is experiencing the things that you're going through. There is somebody else out here who knows how you feel. And so take the time and share if you know of somebody that needs to hear the story. If you haven't already, like our YouTube page, go to our Facebook page and like us. You will be able to find us on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere where they have podcasts. Our show will be available there as well. Again, I thank you for joining us for our world premiere. I apologize for our technical difficulties in the beginning, but again, we will see you here next week, same time, same place, 7 p.m. next week. Thank you.